Hey, I'm Matt. I'm 37 years old, and not too long ago, I thought I was living a dream life. I was married to Rachel, she's 30, and for 3 years, we were completely in sync. Like soulmates level close. We were one of those couples who just got each other. But that all came crashing down the day I found out Rachel cheated on me. My chest feels heavy even writing this. But maybe putting it all out there will help me make sense of it, or at least offer someone out there a little comfort if they've been through something similar. It all started a few years ago during one of those loud, chaotic street festivals downtown. Total mayhem. But somehow, Rachel and I kept bumping into each other throughout the day. No joke, we ran into each other at least 6 times. We laughed about it by the end of the night, joking that maybe the universe was trying to tell us something. Honestly, I believed it. She had these striking green eyes and this effortlessly cool vibe, and something about her felt oddly familiar. I had to talk to her. Conversation flowed naturally, and everything about her just clicked with me. Then, mid-chat, she mentioned she just started working as a physics professor at the local state college. That honestly threw me off a bit. She didn't look the part, petite frame, fresh-faced, the kind of woman you'd easily mistake for a student, not someone leading lectures. At first, I didn't think of her romantically. She struck me as brilliant, maybe a little intimidating, but super easy to talk to. I figured she'd be one of those rare friends you meet once in a lifetime. But as time went on and we spent more time together, it hit me hard. I'd fallen for her. Deeply. Rachel started opening up to me, too. She had a boyfriend at the time, but our friendship started bleeding into something more. A couple months after we first met, she began spending the night at my place when things weren't going well with him. She'd crawl into bed, needing comfort, advice, or just someone to talk to. I knew it wasn't right, but I didn't stop it. She kept saying she was about to break up with him. And eventually she did. She told me it was because they didn't connect on an intellectual level, and just had totally different personalities. Her explanation made me uneasy, but part of me felt relieved, because now she was mine. What I didn't realize was that I had walked right into something I couldn't see coming. We dated for 9 months before tying the knot. I was madly in love with her, and I thought she felt the same. We talked about growing old together, building a family, all of it. In fact, right before we got married, we signed a kind of mutual agreement. We'd try for kids early on. I've always wanted to be a dad. I didn't want to wait until I was 40. I wanted to be there for every moment, every milestone, and give my kids the kind of love I never really got growing up. So, it made sense. Our plan felt solid. But about a year after the wedding, things took a hard turn. Rachel couldn't get pregnant. We tried everything, every test, every doctor, every piece of advice we could get our hands on. Weirdly, all the results came back normal. Nothing was technically wrong. I even got myself tested multiple times, hoping maybe there was a hidden issue on my end. But every result said the same thing: I was fine. Rachel handled it with this strange sense of calm. Too calm, honestly. Meanwhile, I was falling apart. My dream of becoming a father was slipping through my fingers, and I couldn't shake this gnawing anxiety. Most people assume women are the ones who carry that deep desire for children, but in our case, I was the one hurting more. She'd always say, "Don't worry. When it's meant to happen, it'll happen." And then she'd go right back to whatever she was doing like it was no big deal. Eventually, I stopped bringing it up altogether. It felt like every time I mentioned it, she thought I was blaming her, or being overly dramatic. So I stayed quiet, respected her space. But inside I was drowning. I know what I'm about to say gets deeply personal, but I need to say it. Even though we couldn't have a child, I never let that destroy our marriage. In fact, I tried to turn it into a strength, an opportunity to grow closer, to make the most of the time we had as just us before kids entered the picture. But slowly, things started to change. Rachel began feeling distant. Like we were two strangers sharing a house. I work construction, so I don't always meet the people I interact with, contractors, clients, even some of my coworkers. But Rachel somehow knew all their names, what they looked like, even their personalities. We made a habit of sharing the little details of our day, so I figured it made sense. But then I realized I also knew a lot about her students, their names, their issues, even what they looked like. It seemed like we were both investing a lot in each other's worlds. Or so I thought. I used to know everything about Rachel's students, her toughest ones, her favorites, the ones who made her laugh, and even the ones who drove her crazy. She was always sharing stories from her classes and her workdays. But then, all of a sudden, that stopped. And I couldn't figure out why. At first, I figured maybe she was just overwhelmed. Everyone has rough days, right? But those bad days turned into weeks, and then months. Our once effortless conversations vanished, and I couldn't understand what caused the shift. I tried to reconnect, tried to start conversations, but she'd just say she was too busy or that we'd talk later. Later never came. And it wasn't just the talking that faded, our physical connection disappeared too. I got to a point where I was literally begging for even the smallest touch. A hand on my shoulder. A kiss goodnight. Anything. But every time I reached out, she pulled further away. It got to the point where she'd leave the bedroom if I so much as tried to hold her. Every time she did that, it felt like a knife to the chest. My confidence took a hit. It started to feel like she was deliberately shutting me out, not just emotionally, but physically too. Like she was going out of her way to avoid the possibility of getting pregnant. I still loved her. God, I loved her so much. So I kept trying to be patient. I told myself it was just a phase, that maybe she didn't even realize how distant she'd become. I held on to this belief that she'd wake up one day and realize we were slipping apart, and she'd fight for us like I was. But that day never came. Instead, the distance between us grew. We weren't husband and wife anymore. We were just two people living under the same roof, avoiding each other. And when we did talk, it always led to arguments, petty fights, cold silences, conversations that left both of us feeling worse than before. Looking back, maybe I should have dug deeper. Tried to figure out why she changed so suddenly. But I was so blinded by love, so desperate to fix what we had, that I didn't want to see the truth. I ended up compromising more than I should have. In a heartfelt conversation, I told Rachel that having kids didn't matter to me anymore. That I just wanted her, and I was willing to let go of that dream if it meant we could save our marriage. I hoped it would show her how serious I was, how committed I was to making things work. Surprisingly, it seemed to lift her spirits. For about a week, she was different. Warmer. More present. The intimacy started to return, kind of. It still felt a little forced, but I held on to that little sliver of hope. Anything was better than the emotional silence we'd been living in. But just as quickly as it began, the warmth vanished. A week later, Rachel was cold again, more distant than before. Like that glimmer of connection was just an act, something she put on for my sake until she couldn't keep it up anymore. That realization hit me hard. The emotional whiplash took a toll. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus at work. My mind kept going in circles, wondering what I did wrong, what I could have done differently. I started to understand how some couples can live together without ever really talking, but I didn't know how they did it. It was slowly tearing me apart. Meanwhile, Rachel seemed unaffected. She'd come home cheerful, make her own dinner, bury herself in a book or her laptop for hours, and then quietly head to bed, without a single word. We were living in the same house, but I'd never felt more alone. The emotional gap between us widened every day. She isolated herself, and I was left spiraling into this aching loneliness. When our third anniversary as a couple came around, I decided to do something, anything, to turn things around. I planned a full week of celebration. I bought her a thoughtful gift and made a reservation at this fancy new restaurant that had just opened up downtown. I wanted to remind her of us. Of what we used to be. All day, I sent her little messages, sweet, hopeful reminders not to forget our plans. I was practically begging the universe for one night together. But that night came, and she didn't. She didn't show up. And worse, she never came home at all. When I finally heard from her, she claimed she'd fallen asleep at a coworker's place while working on some group project. That lie, it broke something in me. That night marked the end of whatever hope I still had. Emotionally wrecked and mentally drained, I hit my breaking point. Deep down, I'd been trying not to admit the possibility that Rachel might have checked out of our marriage, or worse, that she might be seeing someone else. But this moment forced me to look the truth dead in the eye. I couldn't pretend anymore. I couldn't keep lying to myself. The woman I loved wasn't the same. The realization that the woman I loved was having an affair shattered me in a way I can't even put into words. After that heartbreaking night when she didn't come home for our anniversary, I hit a wall. I couldn't ignore the signs anymore. I needed answers. Real ones. The uncertainty was eating me alive, so I finally decided to do something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. While he worked quietly behind the scenes, trying to uncover the truth about Rachel's whereabouts and actions, I tried to distract myself. On nights when I knew she was completely drained and already asleep, I started dipping my toes back into the dating world. I wasn't looking for anything serious, just something, anything, to dull the ache for a few hours. One night, the idea hit me: why not check her phone? I'd read countless stories online about spouses uncovering infidelity through their partner's devices. And well, curiosity and desperation got the better of me. I waited until she was asleep, used her fingerprint, and unlocked her phone. I combed through everything: apps, texts, emails, even her work and personal accounts. I scanned her contact list, paying close attention to names, emojis, anything that seemed off. But after all that searching, nothing. Not a single shred of evidence. Her digital footprint was spotless. Still restless the next morning, I asked if I could borrow her laptop, pretending I needed it for something specific. She handed it over without hesitation. I went through her files, emails, browser history, everything. Again, nothing. It was cleaner than a brand new device. That almost made it worse. I felt this deep, gnawing guilt for going behind her back, for snooping, for hiring someone to spy on her. By the time the weekend passed, I'd made up my mind to call off the investigation. I figured maybe I was overthinking everything, that maybe I was just spiraling from all the emotional distance. But I held off on making that call. Rachel rarely left the house on weekends, so I figured there wouldn't be anything to report anyway. I told myself I'd call the detective first thing Monday. Monday came. Before I could even explain, the detective cut me off. They'd found something. Something they said I needed to see. Just hearing that nearly made me collapse. 1 week. It had only taken 1 week for the truth to come out. I made my way to their office, barely able to breathe, my thoughts crashing into each other like a storm in my head. When I sat down and saw the evidence, I felt my whole world implode. There she was. Rachel. Holding hands with someone else. Strolling through parks, sitting close at restaurants, our restaurant, the one I'd reserved for our anniversary dinner. The one she never showed up to. In another photo, they were wrapped up in each other, kissing passionately in the front seat of her car. My stomach turned. But it got worse. The investigator laid it all out. They'd stayed in hotels together, more than once. Overnight. That group project she'd mentioned? That was him. That was her excuse. And the guy? He wasn't just some coworker. He was her student. His name was Ryan. He's about 20. In his final year as a physics major. And yes, Rachel was his professor. When I heard that, my entire body went numb. I remembered the name. Rachel had talked about him before. How brilliant he was, how sharp his thinking was. She'd always had a soft spot for people with rare intelligence, and she'd praised Ryan more than once. I never gave it much thought. I never imagined she'd cross that line. But she did. She had an affair with a student. Someone who looked up to her. Trusted her. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the rage, it all came crashing down at once. I couldn't process it. For over 3 years, I gave everything I had to this woman. I sacrificed so much just to make her life better, easier, more comfortable. And this is how she repaid me? With lies. With secrecy. With another man in our bed in spirit, even if not literally. I took care of nearly everything around the house: cooking, cleaning, groceries, the whole deal. Rachel's only real task was doing the laundry on weekends. That was it. We had agreed early on to split finances, with me covering 70% of the bills, and she'd handle the other 30%. It was never a question for me. I saw it as my responsibility to carry more of the load and make things easier for her. That's just what you do when you love someone. But in hindsight, maybe that support ended up enabling her to take me, and our marriage, for granted. One of the biggest challenges throughout our relationship was my mom. She never liked Rachel. She didn't approve of our marriage, and it definitely made things harder. Still, I went through with it. I loved Rachel, and I thought that was all that mattered. But now, with everything unraveling, I couldn't ignore what was happening right in front of me. I asked the private investigator to keep following her. The photos he'd already given me weren't enough. I needed more than grainy snapshots of hand-holding and backseat kisses. I needed the truth shoved in my face. When I got back home that night, my heart ached to see Rachel, to ask her why, to try and find a sliver of what we used to have. But I didn't. I kept quiet. The silence felt heavy, but I knew if I opened my mouth, anger might take over. I didn't trust myself not to lash out. Instead, I started packing a few things, trying to clear my head. That's when I found them. Birth control pills. I just stood there, holding the box, staring at it like it might vanish if I blinked. My first reaction was confusion. I mean, we had been trying for a baby. Or so I thought. All those tests. All that emotional strain. And all along, she'd been taking birth control. The betrayal hit me harder than the affair. She'd let me believe something was wrong with us. Let me wonder if it was my fault. All the while, she'd been actively preventing pregnancy. I felt stupid. Lied to. Absolutely gutted. I sat down, pills in hand, crying harder than I had in years. This wasn't just about cheating anymore. It was a full-on collapse of everything I believed we were building together. After a while, I wiped my face, grabbed a bag, and left the house. I didn't say a word to Rachel. Just told her I was heading to my mom's and would be back by the weekend. That was a lie, but it was strategic. I wanted to see if she'd take the bait. That night, I checked into a hotel. I needed space. I needed to breathe. I was drowning in betrayal and couldn't think straight. The next day, the private investigator reached out. Rachel and Ryan were headed to my house. This was it. Fueled by a storm of emotions, rage, betrayal, heartbreak, I made a bold decision. I'd confront her. Not just that, I'd record it. I'd seen those videos online. The ones where cheaters get exposed in real time. I wanted that moment too. I wanted undeniable proof, something that would haunt them like they haunted me. So I hired a videographer and headed home with him. We arrived shortly after Rachel and Ryan did. I knew she rarely locked the door, especially if she thought I was out of town. We waited a bit, then slipped inside. Music was playing in the living room. Soft. Relaxed. Like they didn't have a care in the world. My stomach turned. We crept toward the bedroom, my heart pounding like a war drum. I braced myself, then slammed the door open. There they were. Ryan, half naked, behind her. In my bed. I told the videographer to keep filming as chaos exploded in the room. They scrambled like rats, grabbing at clothes and blankets. Rachel screamed, first in shock, then in rage. She hurled insults at me like I was the one who'd done something wrong. But I didn't care anymore. I grabbed her by the arm, yanked her out of the house, and threw her out, barefoot, humiliated, completely exposed. Ryan bolted, barely dressed, avoiding a confrontation that might have ended far worse if he hadn't. Neighbors came outside, drawn by the yelling. Rachel realized, maybe for the first time, how deep she'd fallen. She jumped into her car and disappeared down the street. I didn't waste a second. I took everything: The photos, the videos, and sent it all to her college. If she was willing to risk everything for this affair, she deserved to feel the fallout. And that fallout came fast. Within a week, she was fired. Gone. Her reputation destroyed. She was dismissed from her role entirely, her career in shambles. All because she chose to cross a line she never should have touched. Despite some desperate, angry messages from her afterward, I felt nothing but closure. After everything came to light, I shifted my focus toward ending the toxic mess our marriage had become. I was done, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. I just wanted Rachel out of my life for good. She came back to the house once to pack her things, but beyond that, I had no idea where she was staying. After that meeting, I spent the rest of the week scouring the area for divorce attorneys, determined to start the process and reclaim whatever pieces of my life I still had left. Eventually, I found a lawyer who felt like the right fit and booked a consultation right away. I was laser-focused. There was no going back. A few days later, I handed Rachel the divorce papers. Her reaction? Nothing like what I expected. She laughed. That's right, laughed. As if I'd just told her a joke. She said marrying me had been a favor, to begin with, mocked my intelligence, and acted like I should be grateful she ever gave me the time of day. It was a punch to the gut, but I didn't let her see it. I smiled. Kept my composure. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of knowing how deep her words cut. That moment changed everything. I saw the real her, the version she'd kept buried under charm and smiles. Cold. Cruel. Smug. She even had the nerve to say I'd be crawling back within a month, begging her to take me back. Instead of signing the papers, she snatched them out of my hands, claiming she was giving me time to come to my senses. And just like that, she walked out, leaving me to stew in the mess she'd created, with her words echoing in my head. I never told her I'd found the birth control pills. I figured she'd confess, maybe even apologize, for getting fired after crossing professional lines. But nope. She kept that part to herself, pretending like nothing had happened. Instead, she spent months trying to win me back. Text after text. DM after DM. She tried everything to get me to talk, to reconsider, to remember the good times. I eventually blocked her on everything: phone, socials, email. I needed space. But even that didn't stop her. Weeks later, she showed up at my doorstep. She looked like hell. Puffy eyes. Red nose. Crying before she even said a word. Then, right there in front of me, she dropped to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. She begged for forgiveness, swore she'd change, promised she couldn't live without me. Said she had no one else. That her car was on the verge of being repossessed. That she couldn't find work anywhere because of the fallout from her affair. And I'll be honest, watching her like that, broken and desperate, made something inside me pause. I hated her for what she did, but I couldn't ignore how far she'd fallen. Then the anger kicked in again. She'd spent all her money spoiling that kid, lavish dinners, expensive clothes. Playing sugar mama while her own marriage rotted. And now, with nothing left, she was standing here, looking for help? I slammed the door in her face. But she didn't leave. She kept talking, pushing, pleading, and eventually, she played a new card. She said she had something to tell me. Something important. Still wary, I let her speak. And that's when the final truth came out. Rachel admitted she had been taking birth control the entire time we were trying for a child. 2 whole years of tests and heartache, of me wondering what was wrong with us, when the whole time, she'd been secretly making sure it couldn't happen. She said she wasn't ready for motherhood back then. But now she claimed she was ready. She said she wanted to start over, rebuild everything. Have the family I always dreamed of. She begged me to come back. I let her finish. I let her say every word she needed to say. Then I looked her straight in the eyes and told her I already knew. She froze. Shock, guilt, and fear flickered across her face all at once. And I told her the truth. That forgiving her affair was one thing, But what cut deepest wasn't just the cheating. It was the way she made me feel like a fool. The way she let me suffer while lying straight to my face. That betrayal, the one that broke my dream of fatherhood, was something I'd never be able to forget. It became painfully clear that Rachel had seen how much I worried about our relationship, how often I prayed for a breakthrough when everything felt like it was falling apart. She knew. She had to know. And still, she said nothing. She let me twist in the wind, suffer in silence, while she watched from a distance, and whispered that same cold, dismissive phrase again and again. "It's not the right time." That line haunted me. All that time, I thought we were in this together. Working towards something bigger. Fighting for the same dream. But in reality, she'd already made up her mind. She wasn't on the same page, she wasn't even in the same book. Looking back, I hate that I didn't see the signs sooner. I should have picked up on her detachment, her indifference, her silence. But instead, I labeled those gut feelings as paranoia. I ignored them. I told myself love was enough to carry us through. I was wrong. So that night, I looked Rachel in the eye and told her she needed to leave. Not just the house, but my life. And if she ever tried to come back, I'd involve the law. That was the last time we ever saw each other. I've been through rough patches in life. But nothing, ever hurt like this. I honestly thought once her career was over, once the affair blew up, once everything caught up to her, I'd find some peace. But the pain didn't fade. The betrayal still echoed in my chest. It clung to me, shadowed my days, and poisoned every quiet moment. I'd wanted revenge. I'd wanted her to hurt the way she hurt me. But even that didn't bring relief. Because no punishment could undo what she'd done to my heart. I had to rebuild myself from scratch. And I did. It took time. But 5 years have passed. I've healed. I'm married again, to an incredible woman who restored my faith in love. She's everything Rachel wasn't, honest, kind, steady. We have 2 amazing kids. Smart, sweet, and full of life. I finally have the family I always dreamed of. As for Rachel? She tried dating again, twice. Both relationships fell apart. Mutual friends say she's seen more as a distraction than a partner. And that young guy she threw it all away for? Gone. Long gone. These days she still works at a college, but not as a professor. She cleans the floors now. A brilliant woman who had it all, who once stood in front of classrooms teaching quantum mechanics, now pushes a mop down the same halls. I don't say that with bitterness. I don't even pity her. That was the life she chose. And me? I'm just grateful to be free. While clearing out an old storage unit that still held remnants of our shared life, I stumbled upon a box full of Rachel's old journals and letters. I wasn't sure what compelled me to open it. Maybe curiosity, maybe the hope for some kind of closure I hadn't yet found. As I flipped through the pages, I saw reflections from our early years, sweet memories, small arguments, her insecurities, things she never said out loud. Then I found something that made my hands go cold. One entry was from the brief period we broke up during our 3rd year together. Rachel wrote about someone she'd met back then. Someone she felt an instant, deep connection with. She said the bond was intense, but when we got back together, she chose not to pursue it. That person? Ryan. The same guy from the affair. The student she accidentally fell for at that retreat. Suddenly, everything made sense, and hurt even more. Their connection hadn't just started during that work trip. It had roots. History. Their emotional intimacy wasn't new, it was a reunion. Something that had been simmering quietly beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to reignite. I sat there with the journal in my lap, completely gutted. So many emotions hit me at once: betrayal, confusion, grief. I wondered if Rachel had ever really been all in with me. Had I just been her backup plan? Why didn't she ever tell me? I needed to talk to someone. So I called Mark, my rock through all of this. We met for a drink, and I laid everything out for him. He listened carefully, then, true to form, gave me the kind of calm, rational perspective I wasn't sure I wanted, but probably needed. Maybe she didn't even understand how she felt about him back then. He said. Sometimes people don't process things until they're faced with them again. Emotions aren't always logical, man. Doesn't make it okay, but it might explain it. He had a point. Relationships are messy, tangled up in feelings we don't always know how to handle. But now I found myself at a fork in the road. Part of me wanted to confront Rachel. Demand answers. Put every card on the table and finally, understand what had really been going on. But the other part of me wondered if that would just reopen wounds I'd spent years trying to heal. Was it worth it? Or should I just let it be? Sometimes the past should stay buried. If I chase closure, I might get it, or I might just rip open scars that had barely begun to fade. That's where I'm at now. Torn between wanting peace and needing answers. Haunted by what-ifs and half-truths. What would you do? Because the truth is, betrayal, whether it's emotional or physical, leaves a permanent mark. And even when you've moved on, even when you're happy, even when you've built something new, the scar still itches from time to time. It's a reminder of everything you survived. And everything you've left behind.